All right, so we're almost done with the refresher. We're almost ready to start getting into React. I just want to go over a couple more things. So in React, you have two types of components, and I'm going to talk about all this later, but you have functional components and class-based components. And class-based components are a lot more common because that's where you can have state and you can do a bunch of extra things. So it's very important to understand how ES6 classes work, and that's all they are. A React class, a component class, is just an ES6 class. So let's create a class called person. This is just going to be something very simple. And inside a class, you can have properties and methods. Okay, so a property is like, it's a property or an attribute of that class or of that object that you create from the class. And then you also have methods, which are just functions inside of a class. Now, to create properties, we need a constructor. And a constructor is a method, and it's a special kind of method because it runs automatically when you instantiate an object from a class. So I'm just going to say console log ran. And then, well, if I can spell console right. So down here, what I'm going to do is instantiate a new object using this class. So I'll say person1 equals, and we'll say new person. Whoops, new space person. And let's save, and we get ran. Now, in React, we're not going to really be doing this. We're just creating the class. We don't actually instantiate it. That's done behind the scenes, but I'm just showing you how this works in basic JavaScript. So if we created another person, let's copy this down, and we'll change this to person2 and save. And ran is going to get run twice because we created two people or two objects from the person class. Now this doesn't really do us any good. The person has no properties or methods or anything. So let's give the person a name. So to do that, we say this.name equals something. Now we could assign this to a hard-coded string like that, and then we could go down here and we could console.log, and we could say, for instance, person1.name and save, and it's going to be John, but so is person2 or anyone else that we create because it's just a static string. So what you want to do is you want to pass in properties to the constructor and then assign this.name equals to name. And all this is, it's a keyword that pertains to the current object. So let's pass in, for this guy, let's say John, and then for this one, let's say this is Sarah. Okay, so we have two people here, and let's save and run this person2.name, and we get Sarah. If we put in person1.name, we get John. Okay, so this pertains to whichever object we're dealing with. And let's add in another field. We'll say age, and then we need to do this dot age equals age, and then we can pass in an age. So we'll say 33, and we'll say 28. And then if we go down here, we can say person1.age, and we get 33. Okay, so that's a constructor, and that's how you can create properties. Now, if you want to create a method, we can go down here. We can say, let's say greet. We'll call this method greet, and all I want it to do is return a string. I'm going to use a template literal, so I'm going to use backticks, and I'm going to say hello, my name is, and then we need to use the variable syntax, and we need to use this here as well. Okay, so we know what we're talking about here. We want this dot name here in this object is different than here. So this dot name, and then we'll do an I am, and then we'll put the age. So this dot age. And then we could take person1 and we could say dot greet, and it is a function, so we need parentheses. And we'll save, and we get hello, my name is John, and I'm 33. If I do person2 and save, we get hello, my name is Sarah, and I'm 28. Okay, so that's these are properties and methods of a class. Now we can also have subclasses, meaning that we can extend another class. So what I'm going to do is create a customer class and extend the person class. So let's go down here and let's say class customer, and the way that you extend it is by simply saying extends. So we want to extend the person class, and you're going to see this a lot in React because in React components you need to extend the core React component class, which looks like this. Oops, not like that. React dot component. Okay, so you'll see that inside of components because it will include a lot of different methods, which are called lifecycle methods that you can work with. Okay, so you always want to extend that. But in this case, in this example, we're just extending person. Now, in here, if we want to basically inherit its properties, we need to use a function called super, and we use this in React as well. And you pass in the properties of name and age because those belong to person. But I also want, oops, I'm sorry, I did this wrong. This needs to go in a constructor. And then constructor takes in name, age, but I also want the customer to have a balance. Okay, but we want super name, age because name and age are part of the parent constructor. Okay, but since we have balance, we just want to add in this dot balance equals balance like that. All right, and then we could go down here and we could create a customer. So we could say const customer1 equals and say new customer, pass in a name, we'll say Kevin, age we'll say 32, and then balance we'll say 300. All right, so we can create a customer, and then we should be able to console.log customer1.name and save, and we get Kevin. Okay, so let's create a method in here. We'll call it info, and it'll just tell us how much the customer owes. So we'll go ahead and just return a template string or template literal, and we'll get the name. We'll say this dot name, and then let's say owes, and then the price, or I'm sorry, the balance. So this dot balance. Okay, that's all the info method is going to do. So let's go down here and let's say customer1 dot info, and it's a method, so we want our parentheses. And we get Kevin owes 300. And if we wanted to put like a money sign here, and then, I don't know, we could just do .00 and save, and we get Kevin owes $300. All right, so just a quick example of classes and subclasses. So let's go ahead and just comment this stuff out. I apologize if this file is kind of messy. It's not meant to be nice and neat. It's just to show you guys this stuff. So I will include this file in the project files. All right, so modules are a big part of any framework because obviously you're not putting everything in one JavaScript file. You want to create a file for a component. You want to import that component into your main app file, create another component, import that, export things. So modules, ES6 modules are something that we deal with a lot in React. Now I can't give you a solid example here because I don't have Webpack or anything like that set up. Webpack is a module bundler, and then you also have Babel, which allows you to use ES6 modules, and React actually uses Webpack and Babel even with the Create React App CLI, even with the command line tool. When you generate an app behind the scenes, it's using this stuff. And you can also use it with other bundlers like Parcel and stuff like that, but we'll mostly be using Create React App. But in any case, I can't give you a solid example where I can create a file as a module, import it into another one because I'm just using the browser, and it's not compatible with just the browser, at least at this point. So let's just pretend that we have file 1 and it's called file.js. Okay, and then we have file 2, which is file2.js. Actually, let's call this file1.js. All right, so in this file 1, let's just create a variable called name, and we'll set it equal to Jeff. And let's say that we want this name available in file 2. So what we can do is we can export it. Okay, we can export anything, just a variable assigned to a string. We can export objects, functions, classes, anything. So all I would have to do is say export const name, and then this makes it so that we can import it into other files. So in file 2, let's say we wanted to bring it in. What we would do is say import. We'd use some curly braces here, and we'd say name, and we'd say that we want to import this from, and inside quotes the name and location of the file. So I'm in this scenario, these are in the same folder, so it would just be ./file file1. If it was a folder up, it would be like /file1, something like that. Okay, so this would actually bring in name, and then in file1, I could go ahead and I could console.log name, and it would give me Jeff, even though that's stored in a different file or in a different module. Okay, so if we wanted to export something else from the same file, we could do that. So if we say const and, I don't know, we'll just say nums. Let's say this was an array. And if we wanted to bring that in to file1, we could say name, comma, and let's say we also want to bring in nums. And then we could use that down here. Now, you also have something called export default. And if we do that, like let's say we had the class of person. Let's say we had this person class inside of file1. So what we could do is we could export it. So we could say export, and then we would say default person, the name of the class. And in here, in file2, if we wanted to bring that in and it was exported as default, we would then say import person without the curly braces from /file1. So notice I don't have curly braces around person because it was exported as default. Okay, the other ones were not, so I would put those inside of the curly braces. All right, and you'll see a lot of this in React, and we'll be doing this quite a bit. So I think that's going to be it, guys. I'm going to go ahead and just comment this stuff out and save it, and I'll probably clean this file up a little bit, and I'll put it in with this lecture so you can have it as a reference. All right, so thanks, and in the next video, we're going to start to get into React.